Shifting now to another part of the world, and one of great consequence for everything in healthcare innovation and growing more so every single day is China. And if we can bring up the slide for the panel, we want to thank and acknowledge the panel. Several of the panel members have traveled all the way from China. We have a, I think, terrific combination of leaders from Bank of America, and hopefully their names will be up here on the screen in a moment. Aamir Mecklai, one of the senior members of the investment banking team and a real partner for us in putting together the forum. We're very grateful to him and his driving force. And Tim Ng, also a senior member of the Bank of America team. And they're going to introduce the rest of the panel. Come on up.
Okay, Chris, thank you for that introduction. My name is Aamir Mecklai. I'm Managing Director of BofA Healthcare Group focused in biotech. I'm accompanied here by my co-moderator, Timothy Ng, who heads our China healthcare investment banking practice based in Hong Kong. We're fortunate to have 4 panelists here on our stage here today that represent a diverse set of companies from the Chinese biotech ecosystem. We have private company representation, we've got public company representation, we've got the investors that support Chinese biotechs, and we've even got a private company that started Chinese-centric and eventually moved and expanded to the US. So look, obviously we're here for the World Medical Innovation Forum Conference. The forefront of a lot of that innovation has certainly been here from Boston and Cambridge and other places in the US. But the focus of this panel is certainly to acknowledge and highlight the innovation we've been seeing coming out of China and what's been driving that innovation. I think the one stat that really sums it up quite well is that China actually accounts, as of last year, more than 1/3 of global clinical trial starts across the biopharma industry. That stat, probably about 10 years ago, was closer to 5%. So why don't we kick it off? I'll ask Xiayang to kick off with the first question is, there's been this perception of innovation in China that it's largely being driven by Me-Toos or me-differentiated molecules. That perception has actually evolved recently. Xiayang, could you provide your views on where the innovation we're seeing in China now?
Thank you very much. First of all, a brief introduction. I grew up in China, but I've been living in the United States for more than 3 decades. Regor, the company is similar, that we started our preclinical discovery work in Shanghai, in China. But we do most of our development work in the US. So we view us as a global company. From your question, right? I think the perception does have some merit to it. If you look at the title, DeepSeek moment, right? From my reading of DeepSeek means it has advantage in efficiency, cost structure. Not necessarily bigger, better, but it is very efficient from my view. When we started Regor, same thing, right? So if you can do the same experiment several times cheaper, that does give you an advantage. I would say the perception is true. But if the economic model still geared towards that way, there is an inherent advantage to do things, innovation at risk, right? Because there's always a risk associated with innovation.
Great, thank you, Dr. Chu. Jasmine, Dr. Cui. So obviously the China life sciences ecosystem has evolved very quickly and extensively over the past decade. What is the role of the Chinese government or the regulators that has helped with the favorable regulatory reform? Any notable differences between the Western markets or the US?
Right, thank you for the question. And I'm Jasmine Cui. I'm trained as a PhD scientist and in the US, and I worked for the Merck in New Jersey for many years. And then I founded InnoCare about 10 years ago, and InnoCare now work on the drug innovation of anti-cancer and autoimmune diseases The company is listed in Hong Kong and in Istanbul. We have a global presence in New Jersey and also major working force in Beijing and Shanghai. And yeah, InnoCare has been like 10 years. And from 10 years ago, China regulatory basically from mainly on the generic companies and etc. And in the last 10 years, the regulatory talking about like CDE and also the medical insurance reform policies, and all had improved a lot since China become part of ICH, and all the regulatory policies on drug approval and already been very close to the global organization, such as the number of days for NDA approval, the number of days for IND, and also the phase 3 clinical trials, and all the standards pretty much similar to the US and other countries. And now a little bit behind ARDL, also medical insurance coverage by the government, and already made a lot of progress since 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was no coverage for the innovative medicines. By now already, about 1/3 or about half of that drugs covered by NRDL are the innovative drugs. So although I think we still have a way to go and to really become globally fully aligned, I do think the policies, the government awareness of, all the policies will be aligned with global standard.
And just a follow-up question that has been, clearly the China government, the China FDA equivalent has made strides in terms of improving the efficiency of getting drugs in clinic. Just to quantify this for the audience, what is the typical timeline to get a drug into the clinic in China?
So right now, talk about IND. Before was really long. There is no timeline, but now it's close to about 3 months, and then now gradually shrink to 2 months, 60 days for IND approval. And in some cases, rare disease and very unmet medical needs, you can get faster.
Can I add to this?
Yeah.
Right, just a real example, quantify this. Right, if you look at the obesity, for example, in the US, to get approval, you need minimally 4,500 patients. And in China, it's 1,500, so that's 3 times difference. Per patient cost is about 3 times as well. So you're dealing with about 9 times in terms of cost structure. And then in China, you can start a phase 3 with very short duration of phase 2. In US, you don't do that. I think the number is significant. I don't know what to do with that, but that's the fact.
Okay, thank you. So, in Xiayang, you touched on this in your opening remarks, but a key driver of the innovation is certainly some of the efficiencies that Chinese companies are realizing in R&D relative to their Western counterparts. Certainly, there's advantages just from a population in China, but there's certainly other advantages around cost efficiencies, R&D efficiencies. So the next question, Weiyi, what are some of these efficiencies in terms of drug development that you're seeing in terms of developing in China, and how has that advantaged them relative to their counterparts in US biotechs?
Yeah, so first of all, introduce myself a bit as all the others are doing. So my name is Weiyi. I'm the CEO of a biotech company with global operation focusing on research of next generation of RNA, which is so-called circular RNA. So actually, by taking the China R&D efficiency and productivity, we were able to be the first in the world to move this modality into clinical trial. So actually, talking about productivity in R&D efficiency, this is really the question, to the very heart of the R&D dynamics in China, innovation dynamics in China. So I think the efficiency basically comes from, let's say, 3 different layers. So I think number 1, indeed, is the productivity. I think also Xiayang has mentioned something around, DeepSeek, how DeepSeek got this huge attention. I think it's also because of the cost of trial and error is lower under this high efficiency, so you can quickly trial and error and then find a way. And this is also, stay as the center of how we could work on new modalities. And also the efficiency also comes from, let's say, the kind of, mindsets of the talents in China. So there's kind of, technical, process-driven, and engineering mindsets. When it comes to new modalities, then it's quick engineering mindsets just could help us to quickly pivot to the right direction. I think the number 2 layer, which is super important and also has been mentioned by a few panelists already, is on the clinical development efficiency. So there's really a vast population that is centered in the large medical centers in China, and those are kind of treatment-naive patients. And then people also talking about the phase 3 development efficiency. Probably in China, like phase 3 diabetes trial that can be completed within 18 months, but then if put this timeline in the United States, we have to multiplex 3. And also, we also have the luck to work on so-called new modality or in the sector of cell and gene therapy, so that we could really seamlessly move from preclinical to clinical, take the advantage of the government policy, on openness of investigator-initiated trial to quickly de-risk the cell and gene therapy as new drug modality. And on top of that, just to add what Jasmine has said, and also 2 or 3 days ago, CDE also has a new policy claiming that for the innovative drug, the IND opening is shortened to 30 days. So all in all, I think this guarantees the efficiency. And also on the other hand, in China, it's kind of like US innovation hub kind of structure. So here we are talking about Boston, talking about Bay Area, and in China we're talking about Shanghai, Suzhou as an innovation hub, and on top of that, Beijing. So this is also creates integrated ecosystem, from CRO, CDMO, academics, and also top academic center. I think from all these 3 perspectives or 3 layers, it guarantees the R&D efficiency.
Thank you, Weiyi. Maybe Dr. Shou for the next one. Talent obviously is a very important element to the development of the life sciences ecosystem globally and obviously in China. So Dr. Shou, I understand that most, if not all, the panelists today have worked and trained overseas outside China. What's your experience on that? What are some of the differences and observations on the talent pool in China?
Thanks, Tim. Before I answer your question, I am Yaping Shou. I'm the CEO of Weiyi Therapeutics. We are a startup company, and I myself was trained as physician scientist. And at Wells, together with my colleagues, we are a very seasoned team of clinical drug developer. And we have years of clinical development experience, and that's relevant to the answer I will provide later. We actually have access to China. We built up the on-ground BD capability in China, and we identify platform companies China with a enabling technology. We think together we can develop true innovative first-in-class drugs. And we obviously, a clinical development engine, we want to bring these therapies to the clinical stage of development, and we leverage the China operation with a lower cost and faster human testing possibility. As Weiyi just said, we can really have initial human experience generating de-risking data in China. But in the end, we want to obviously develop these drugs in the global stage. We will view China as part of the global clinical development, sort of a part of the global clinical development, and with the ultimate goal of delivering these assets to the bigger pharma for further development. So that's my background. So looking at the China talent pools, really I think overall, the biopharma industry in China is still very young. And if we look at the talent pool here in the US, I think there is a well-balanced talent pool throughout every step of drug development process, including the discovery stage, pharmacology, preclinical development, and then translational science and clinical development. But I think looking at the talent pool currently in China, I think is very much more concentrated on the front end. China has a great chemist, antibody engineering, and we've seen the productivity coming out these talent pool. We have very differentiated small molecule product. We have a tremendous amount of the pipeline concentrated in bispecific, trispecific antibody. ADC obviously is contributing to really global stage ADC development space. There's many other more novel modalities out there. But I think in the area where the talent pool is still lagging behind, I think is really in the later part of it, including the translational science, including the clinical development. And if we look at China clinical development talent pool, majority of the talent currently are trained in the bigger pharma, but trained in the local organization of the bigger pharma. So when they get involved in the late stage development, when bigger pharma open the trials in China, normally it's already the phase 3 or phase 4 regional study. So at that point, the drug has been already well characterized, and the global development strategy is already planned out by the global team. So the talent right now, they're very execution based. They're great in terms of executing the clinical trial, and that's probably contribute tremendously to the speed, and we're seeing how the clinical trials are conducted in China. Not only the patient pools and cost structure, but the talent as well. And it has served Me Better drug development very well. Because there's already a roadmap ahead of them so you can execute. But I think looking at the next wave of innovation coming from China, really we are going to embrace more novel therapy development, first-in-class drug development. So when these assets get into the clinical stage development, that is really upon the companies and the clinical PIs really characterize these drugs, the safety profile, how to best select the dose, where to go to develop these new sort of molecules. I think that's the area I think China will experience some challenges, and they need greatly expansion of the talent in this area. And translational science, I think, is another area. I think, if I think about the US drug development, is more science-based, is more rationalized approach versus China is more empirical approach. And when we do the clinical development here globally, we actually rely on the translational science is to really provide us with the base, how we design the clinical development strategy. But when we were looking at many IND enabling package coming from China company, I think the component of the translational science is really lag behind. So I think these are the area I think China will grow, and China has grown very, very quick. But it takes time, and when the needs is there, when they need to develop the more innovative therapy, I think that will speed up the learning curve as well.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive response. So,
Thank you.
So I think one area we'd also like to touch on, we've talked about talent that's driving the innovation, the R&D efficiencies. I did want to touch on capital. For the last 5 years, the capital or the flow of capital to many of these private Chinese biotech companies has pretty much been starved, pretty much been non-existent. I'd say it's just in the last year where those markets are starting to open up again. Just to give you one proxy, the Hong Kong Exchange Index is up 35% year to date versus the S&P 500, which is up only 10% year to date. And that's triggered a lot of interest or renewed interest from investors to drive investment into Chinese biotech. So on that point, Jasmine, being a public company in China and being a beneficiary of some of that renewed flow of capital, where is the next area of innovation for Chinese biotechs? And I think it'd be helpful, given the composure of the audience and mostly scientific, is just some specific targets or modalities, therapeutic areas, and touching on those areas, which you think could be the next wave beyond what we've seen a lot in oncology and cardiometabolic.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very good question, Aamir. I wish I know. And so, by the way, I think recently, like Aamir said, in the Hong Kong market, the Chinese companies and all the companies listed in Hong Kong healthcare have increased a lot and get a lot of fundraising and support the research. And I think now in China, talk about the DeepSeek moment. And AI-based drug innovation discovery, I think will be next wave. And from our own company and many of our peers already started how to use AI to accelerate clinical trials, information-based, that has no problem. Also, we are trying to see how we can use AI or the accumulate information that we can get drug discovery, can design a better molecule. We are working on small molecule, larger molecule, and how you can get better designs and even improve, before the success rate is 5% for first in class, now can become 10 or 20%. So I think that will be a lot of innovation will comes from there. And another thing is, continuously, China, we have been, pretty good at engineering how to create a molecule, that combine different natures of, advantages and continuously, antibody like bispecific. Now I see moving into a lot of tri-specific and multiple, combo of antibodies and with ADCs, with a single payload and multiple payload. And I think this, we will have new generations of drugs, particularly for the, hard to treat cancers and with drug resistant, and those kind of modality definitely can help. That's what I can think of. Also, China is working on a lot of autoimmune disease. That's the area that actually we are in, including CNS-based autoimmune disease, CNS-based inflammation. I think that will come out a lot of new molecules from there.
Thank you, Jasmine. Appreciate the prediction and obviously some overview from a corporate perspective. Maybe we switch to the opposite side from an investor's perspective. Dr. Shou, maybe back to you. Obviously, you've done a lot of work doing cross-border transactions, investments into the Chinese life sciences ecosystem. Can you help us understand what's in the mind of a Chinese investor, and how is that helping to cultivate and create this DeepSeek moment for China biotech?
Yeah, so on the side, I have been advising Lilly Asia Venture, which is a leading healthcare-focused venture firm in China. Obviously, LAV has operations in Shanghai, Hong Kong, but also US as well. So through their lens, I can see tremendous changes in the last 5 years in terms of their investment focus and investment thesis. And if I think about 4 or 5 years ago, the China investor founded company, they all came here to the States and looking to out-license the China development rights of the asset in the US company here. And they bring these assets back and with the purpose of developing these assets in China, eventually commercialize these products in the China market there. And then the next wave is really the investor-funded companies. They start to develop their own product pipeline, mainly are the me too, me better type of product. And normally they only work with modalities or the class of drugs and target that's already had clinical validations outside. But I think the purpose still sort of develop these drugs for the local market. And I think when I got involved with LAV at the time, I think the China investor wanting to fund the company, and the purpose is develop these companies into a biopharma. So this BD concept or the development can be segmented out, and development of one product could be change hand. That was a very foreign concept at the time. But then the China is a game of speed and the volume, and any platforms, any sort of interesting target, there's many companies working there. So you have a very extensive pool of available me too sort of a drug available, and that attract a lot of interest from bigger pharmas, and we see a lot of new co-formation supported by the bigger capital support from U.S. Side. And then, you know, the concept of how to invest is really changed. There's understanding that not all the biotech company can eventually develop into a biopharma. Obviously, in Jasmine's case, it's a very successful, really heading to the biopharma direction, but many others, maybe their goal is to generate asset that can be handed off to the next party for further development there. So, you know, that sort of thesis has changed. The Chinese investor, I think the overall their tolerance for the risk is on the lower side. So when we are speaking about, you know, developing innovative therapies and taking an example of forming some new codes, I think they would like the U.S. investor to take the lead. Obviously, they were joining in the syndicate and be their sort of a conduits in China. But with the recent sort of interest and many successful BD deals done, not only with the investor funded new co, but with larger farmers, I think overall, the confidence level from the investor side, the China investor side, also from the company side, probably will increase tremendously. I think it is a DeepSeek moment where a lot of Chinese companies investors realize China can truly sort of contribute to the drug development and innovative drug development at the global stage. So I think that will probably change how they invest for the future.
Thank you. And you know, beyond obviously investors recognize the innovation, and if you were here yesterday and sat in on some of the panels with the Western pharma MNCs, they've certainly been recognizing and sourcing innovation from Chinese biotechs. There's been an explosion of that activity in the last couple of years. Dr. Xiayang is kind of at the forefront of that with Regor Therapeutics, and approximately about a year ago, they sold their CDK4 plus asset to Roche for about $3 billion of total deal value, which at the time was the highest sale of a Chinese biotech asset upfront value on record. So I'll direct the next question to you, Dr. Cui. What have been some of the key factors that you've observed that's driven this explosion of BD activity with Western pharma, and what do you think may be some of the headwinds in that continued sustained activity?
Thank you, Aamir. First of all, thank you, Bank of America, Aamir, for helping us making that deal.
You mentioned that, not me.
Right, you know, so it all comes to science, differentiation, advantage. We are lucky that we saw the light in the very beginning. We designed the molecule, not only best in class, we said the only one in class using our computational structure design. So it's really based on science and based on clinical data, right? And I think that will continue to be the criteria. You know, sitting in this building, it's sort of like you go into a slot machine. You only see the successful examples. you think you're going to win money, but it's actually not a guarantee, right? Because you only see people who are successful sitting here, but there are many people lost their money. So I think there are a lot of people are, doing work, probably working even harder, but because they don't have the expertise or they bet on the wrong things, they're not nearly as successful. To make this sustainable, I expanded two different things. I like this to be sustainable because this really is helping ultimately the global consumers, the patients, right? Even back when I was working at Big Pharma in the US for 20-some years, right? You bet on certain mechanisms, but you ain't gonna bet on everything. But in a few years, the game will change. You recognize you need something, so you buy. And if you look at the US record, whether from China or not, more than half the stuff they sell is they bought, right? It says nothing about they are not good. It's actually, that's just the game it plays. Now, if you want to be as good as them in the things they bet and win, I don't think that's there yet. Occasionally, you can see people like Regor did something really fantastic. And by and large, it's just a healthy part of the ecosystem. Now, the US, it has always been like that. The China has improved a lot. If you recall 10 years ago, everybody like Shou said that it used to be fashionable to in-license US product to China to develop. That's like barely 10 years ago. Now the tide is totally turned, right? Who could imagine that? I wouldn't imagine that. It happened because, first of all, it is maybe possible to discover a drug in China and make a small profit. You're not gonna make a lot of profit because China is a poor country. US is still gonna pay for the vast majority of the innovation. But if you can break even or make a small profit, then any rights you have beyond China is a huge bonus, right? You already make your bet. And you're gonna be able to potentially sell. Now, maybe you only have 1 in 10 chance of selling, but it's a bonus anyway. So that solved the US problem in lack of productivity options for US big pharma, but also solved the Chinese innovation thing. So I think, you never know, right? But if I make a prediction, I think it's probably gonna be sustainable. And it's good for everybody.
Thanks, Dr. Chu. Congratulations again for what you've built and what a landmark transaction. Weiyi, we gave you an easy question earlier on some of the efficiencies, right, advantages. Now we're going to throw you a difficult one. What are some of the bottlenecks, potential challenges, Weiyi, that you see for China biotech in the coming years?
Right, thank you. Weiyi, sorry.
Sorry to take your question. So anyhow, I think in China, the efficiency creates a problem, which is so-called internal competition. Or in Chinese, we call it 内卷. So basically, it's like, there's no country in the world that you will find 100 companies working on the same target. And so this creates some sort of differentiation among the competition, but I think majority of the competitor will just lose during this kind of, efficiency-driven drug development versus smart innovator. So I think it's really when we're talking about efficiency, it's good in a way, but then it has to accelerate the smart innovator to get to the next level. And also, we are talking about efficiency engineering mindset, but then we also kind of lack of those blue sky type of innovation, those big ideas. So I think that is definitely something we have to learn from the ecosystem where we are right now, sitting at. So basically, if I have a dream that we could do really efficient drug development, I think the discovery should be here in Boston, development in China, and then we do global launch. So this is like the dream world. Of course, it's not, the world is not playing the game in this way, but I think anyhow on this spirit, if any company located in China or United States can take this kind of way of working, I think will make a successful story.
Great. So I know we just got a few minutes remaining. I think just to wrap up the panel, we'll just ask each panelist one lightning round question here in 1 minute or so. And I think what we'd like to get your perspective on is just in the next 5 years, how do you see the Chinese biotech system evolve? There's a number of challenges that we've emphasized around geopolitical challenges. I think data integrity is something that comes up a lot as well too. But could each panelist just share a perspective on the crystal ball 5 years from now? James, you want to start?
Me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I think the China at the moment still will be sustained. I think no matter in China and in US and global, life science has no boundary. I think eventually the whole world will become like a balance. Now, 10 years ago, we get innovation from west to east. Now we are gradually catch up. So I think we'll be like by year 30, will be more balanced. People will reach a high level. So China will continue to arise to the global.
Yeah, maybe specific to Regor, right? So we are innovative biotech, similar to US, we're a global company. So it's a challenge for us as well, how to reposition, leverage the efficiencies, advantages, but still focus on science, innovation, differentiation. The playing ground is different from 10 years ago. Even though we've been successful, it doesn't mean we're going to be successful in the next 10 years. And so I think I welcome that challenge. I think we're dealing with similar issue with the US biotech, how to position yourself and focus your limited resource on the things that you can really differentiate in science. Thank you.
So I hope in the next 5 years, China can truly develop some novel breakthrough therapies. And I think these new therapies probably are not going to be driven by understanding of the disease biology, identifying more science-based target. But I think the technology advancement in China is really can make some breakthroughs. And I can take an analogy of HER2, which we know the transformative therapy really changes standard care for the HER2 positive disease. But target for HER2 is really a known target, well-established one. But the transformation was really enabled by the technology advancement. Daiichi developed these DXd payload with a high DAR platform. So I think China, some of the new platforms that are developing right now really can enable that type of innovation coming to the fruition. And at Wells Therapeutics, we are actually working with a platform company. They had a multi-payload ADC platform where they can conjugate up to 6 different payloads onto one single molecule there. And that really potentially can resolve a huge clinical issue because we know combination therapy is the ultimate goal, but there's a lot of issues in terms of combining individual therapies. But if you can really bundle all the combination therapy in one single molecule there, it can potentially really have the potential to really modifying the disease, have the disease modifying efficacy, and really is not incremental change we're speaking about. So I think with what's happening in China with a lot of confidence with the ecosystem changes that could possibly happen.
Yeah, so I would hope to see the China biotech companies really grow from more domestic company into global companies. So we haven't seen really the representative companies, like really truly innovative biotech companies headquartered in China and then really have global innovation worldwide. I think if I could see that happen within the next 5 years, that would be great.
Great. So unless there's any other closing points, I want to thank the panelists. Certainly the excitement that we see in the innovation in China is here to stay. And stay tuned, see what we'll see in the next few years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.